Hey everyone, welcome back to RetroBreak and welcome to my memories of the Virtual Boy. And yes, I do have memories of the Virtual Boy, despite growing up in the UK. And that is because for Christmas one year, I convinced my parents to try and track me down a Virtual Boy, because as a kid, I was already a massive Nintendo fan, and I'd been reading all about this obscure console called the Virtual Boy, which never came out in the UK. And I was so desperate to get a Virtual Boy back then that I remember I actually made a PowerPoint presentation, which I showed to my parents and explained my desperation to get my hands on this unique piece of tech from Nintendo, and I got it that year and I absolutely fell in love with it. Obviously, I'd read about all of the downsides, I'd read about people getting migraines from it, I'd read about all the parents' worries about kids going blind, but I didn't care. Throw all that out the window. It's a Nintendo console that I didn't have, and I got it for Christmas, and honestly, I absolutely loved it. And here's a photo of me that year enjoying the Virtual Boy here on our kitchen table. I think I worked it out to be around 2000 or 2001, so the Virtual Boy had already been out for a few years at that point. Here's the two games that I got for Christmas that year. We got Red Alarm and Mario Tennis. Both of these are actually really good games, and I wish I could show you how it looks in person. I tried to record some gameplay from the console, but it's just impossible to capture it properly. It just can't stay in focus. So instead I've got some emulator footage here, but I'll keep it red for that kind of authentic experience. But obviously be aware that you can't see the depth, which is the main appeal with these games, really. So Red Alarm was probably my favourite game that I played back in the day. It's kind of like a Star Fox style game where you're going into the screen, but everything's made of wireframe graphics, and every time I see this game talked about online, people say that it's just completely impenetrable. You can't see where you're going, there's no way of differentiating where the enemies are from the walls, from the backgrounds, but honestly, when you play it in 3D, all of those issues go away entirely, and that's not something that I can express on this video. You really do need to check it out in stereoscopic 3D for this effect and for these graphics to actually work. And when you do, you're actually greeted with a really cool game that has a really cool control system too. So here's the controller for the Virtual Boy, and as you can see, it's actually a symmetrical design with two buttons and two D-pads, one on either side. And the game Red Alarm actually takes into account the two D-pads in a really cool way. So you use the left D-pad to move as normal, and you can angle your ship up and down and move from side to side. But the right D-pad actually allows you to dash up, down, left or right, so you can actually strafe while you're looking around with the other control pad, and this works really well for dodging enemy bullets. And I kind of wish that this was a control system that was implemented in Star Fox as well. It would be really cool if you could boost away from the enemies instead of having to fly around them like that. It really works incredibly well, and the two triggers on the back for firing work really well too, and then you have A to accelerate and B to brake or reverse, and it's just a great control scheme, and I really think it fits the game incredibly well too. The game itself is also really fun to play. It's kind of linear for the most part, although there are a few boss fights where it opens up into a big room. The only criticism that I have for this game is the draw distance is very narrow, so in some of the bigger environments it can be a little difficult to kind of picture where you are in the stage, but when the boss comes into view that's not really a problem, and for the linear levels this is just so much fun to play. And I went back and played it today to try and capture some footage using the console, which was obviously impossible, but I still had a lot of fun revisiting the game, and playing it in 3D is just so cool. The other game I enjoyed playing that Christmas was Mario Tennis, and this is actually the first game in the Mario Tennis series, so it's really cool to see that a game series that's still going today got its start on such a strange console. The game's really fun though as well, and the moment I turned this on, this was the first game that I played, and I saw the ball bounce right into your face and then back out again onto the court. I just thought, this is so cool. The graphics are actually really nice as well, and the resolution is a lot higher than the Game Boy, so you get some really nice sprite work on here too. And because of the limited movement in this game as well, I don't really think this is a game that could cause any sort of nausea, which maybe a game like Red Alarm can, because there's lot of movement going on, but this is just a great sports game. It controls really well. I also really loved playing through the tournament mode back in the day too. It was great to actually have a bit more of a engaging single player experience rather than just doing the single matches. So it's a great version of tennis. It controls really well. The music as well is great, and that's a theme that runs across the entire Virtual Boy library. And because the speakers are so close to your face as well and they're in stereo, it just sounds great. And I just love some of the soundtracks on the Virtual Boy. So really recommend checking out Mario Tennis if you can. So unfortunately I couldn't find the box for these two games, but there were two other games that I got a little bit later on, maybe for my birthday that year, and they are Vertical Force and V Tetris, and I could find the boxes for these two. And again, both of these are fantastic games. I really do feel like the Virtual Boy library is completely overlooked and misunderstood, and this is one of my favourite versions of Tetris. It has a few different game modes. It has the basic game mode, which is pretty much the same as every other classic style of Tetris. There's no hold or hard drop, but what is here is a really well polished version of the game. But there's a few additional Virtual Boy modes as well. There's a really cool one where the screen keeps scrolling around and you can actually build on the front and the back, which is a really unique way of playing. And this feels kind of like a precursor to Tetris Effect as well, because you have fully 3D backgrounds with all sorts of different things going on. There's like a star field, or there's like various different layered cartoon backgrounds. And like I said about the other two games, I also love the soundtrack in this game. In fact, Music B in this game is probably my favourite classic Tetris song out of all of them. It really is amazing. Just listen to a bit of the song and have a look at some of the gameplay now. And the next game, Vertical Force by Hudson, this is actually part of the Star Soldier series, and this is so much fun to play. I've always loved vertical scrolling shooters, and the added depth of this one because of the 3D effect is just so cool. It plays really well, first of all, even if it didn't have the 3D. And of course, Hudson is very well known as being one of the best creators of vertical scrolling shooters, and this one does not disappoint, but the added depth with the 3D really brings this game into its own, especially when you're playing it on the console itself. And you actually see yourself dive into the background, and there's two different layers of enemies as well. And then there's also some foreground elements which you have to try and avoid as you're going through. It's just really cool to play it on the Virtual Boy itself. And apart from that, it's a pretty basic, generic vertical scrolling shooter, but because of that 3D parallax scrolling and the two different gameplay layers, it really is so much fun to play, and it was great fun to revisit this one for the video too, especially when you play it in 3D. Another puzzle game that I had for the system as a kid was this one here, and this is Panic Bomberman, and this has been released on other consoles as well, and there's not really any particular reason why you would choose to play this on the Virtual Boy instead of any of the other versions, but it's a really well polished puzzle game. It kind of plays like Puyo Puyo, except you have 3 blobs instead of 2, and you also get bombs that come down from the screen as well, and you can line the bombs up, and eventually you'll get one that's got a lit fuse, and you can drop that on the bombs and set off a chain reaction. It's a lot of fun, but like I said, there's not really any specific reason why you would choose to play this on the Virtual Boy. It doesn't really feature any really cool 3D gimmicks or anything like that, unlike the Tetris game, but still, really fun, and I really enjoyed it back in the day. So they were the ones that I grew up with, and I didn't have many other games for the Virtual Boy for quite a long time, but I still went back and played it every now and then. But since then, obviously, I've been back and picked up some more games. Mario Clash, let's start with this one. Mario Clash is kind of like the Virtual Boy's take on the original Mario arcade game. It's very different though in a way, and it really uses the 3D to a really nice effect. It's not a proper Mario platformer, which I'm sure a lot of people were kind of disappointed about, considering that one was actually teased back in the day. But what we got here is a really cool arcade style action game. Basically, you can jump on the Koopas and then you either throw the shell into the foreground or the background, or you kick it from one side of the screen to the other and it goes through the pipe and out the other side. And you just need to clear the screen from enemies and then move on to the next level. It's very arcadey, but it definitely has that kind of one more go, pick up and play factor. The fact that you can just put this game in and play it for 10 or 15 minutes and feel like you've got really good value from the play session, I really think that that was kind of what they were going for with this. Just kind of pick up and play it for a few minutes, have a bit of fun and then turn it off. And I really think they knocked it out of the park. I don't really know what else you could ask for from an arcade-style Mario game. It is a lot of fun. But if you do want more of a full-featured 2D platformer, that is where Wario Land comes in, and a lot of people say this is the best game on the system, and some people even go as far as saying that this is the best game in the Wario Land series. I wouldn't say either of those things are true. Like, I enjoy the game, it is cool, and it does use the 3D effect with the 2 different layers and being able to walk in the background and stuff, but honestly, it's kind of a generic platformer and not really worth the money that people ask for the game, and it's not really worth getting the console just to play it, but definitely check it out if you like the Wario Land series. I definitely prefer the Game Boy and the Game Boy Advance games over this one though, but it's still worth checking out, and it is a fun game in its own right too. And the last physical game that I've got here is Galactic Pinball, and this is a really cool pinball simulator for the system. It also includes a few nods to the Metroid franchise too. There's a cool little secret in the game where you can actually control Samus's spaceship as you're shooting down aliens, but the game itself is really cool too. And again, it uses the 3D to great effect with the tilted table, and it also uses the controller really well too, with the bumpers being the triggers on the back of either side. There's a lot more really cool stuff about the Virtual Boy that I would love to talk about. There's a load of homebrew releases for the system, which is really surprising to see. And people are even now beginning to use the Virtual Boy to create music as well. I met Tronimal a few weeks back at Gamescom, and he actually gave me this CD here, which is actually an album of music that he made using the Virtual Boy sound chip. So that is just so cool, and it's great to see that the Virtual Boy is still loved all of these years later. There's also a fantastic look into the history of the system and every single official release in the Geeks Line Anthology Virtual and Game Boy book here. They've got a whole section at the back dedicated to just the Virtual Boy, and it's such a fascinating read, and I will definitely be using some of the information from here to do a full Virtual Boy history episode in the future. But perhaps the coolest thing about the Virtual Boy these days is all of the different ways that you can actually play it without needing to own the original system. So if you mod your 3DS, you can actually download an emulator called Red Viper, and the amazing thing about this is that yes, it actually features full 3D for all the games, and this has to be my favourite way of playing 3DS games these days. Like, it won't come across on the camera at all, but this looks just as good as playing it on the Virtual Boy. Obviously not quite as immersive because you don't have nothing but the game, which is what I really like about the Virtual Boy and virtual reality in general. I love that full immersion, but what you do have on here is a really, really cool rendition of the Virtual Boy. Like, as far as I can tell, the emulation is just absolutely perfect. And because the Virtual Boy games were actually originally in widescreen, they actually fit the 3DS display perfectly too, which is really cool. And if you've got a Quest or any other VR headset, you can actually sideload a Virtual Boy emulator onto here as well, and that also works really well too. So it's not just the Switch 2, there are actually a variety of different ways that you can experience Virtual Boy games properly with the stereoscopic 3D, and they definitely are worth checking out. So if you've got a 3DS or a VR headset, or if you're thinking about getting it on the Switch 2, I really do recommend trying it out and trying out some of the games for yourselves. Don't just read all of the negativity online, because I really do think it is a very good console, and it has some very good games too. So that is where we'll leave it for this episode. I'll definitely talk more about the Virtual Boy in the future. If you want to check my memories out for the Game Boy, then click the video up here, and I'll see you all again very soon. Goodbye.